In a world that constantly whispers for conformity, there are those whose souls refuse to bow. They are not rare because they seek to be different, but because their very essence cannot be confined. They carry within them a quiet fire, a deep awareness, and a rhythm that beats in defiance of the crowd. If you have faced these signs, you may possess a personality so uncommon that the ordinary world does not know how to receive you. There are certain moments in life where the feeling of being misplaced is so potent, it shapes the entire architecture of your being. It is not the kind of alienation born from temporary circumstances, nor the ache that fades once you find a new environment. It is an enduring sense that the world into which you were born speaks a language you were never taught. You have walked into rooms full of laughter and chatter, and while you may smile and even participate, something within you remains untouched by it all. You look around and see people perfectly at home, in a reality that to you feels foreign, shallow, or strangely artificial. And though they do not notice it, you are quietly carrying the weight of a mind and spirit that exist on a different wavelength entirely. This feeling does not arise because you are antisocial, arrogant, or incapable of connection. It arises because your nature gravitates toward the depths, while much of the world floats comfortably on the surface. The everyday exchanges that others find fulfilling often leave you restless because they do not touch the essence of what matters to you. You do not wish to speak endlessly about weather, fashion trends, or fleeting gossip. Your heart longs for dialogue about purpose, existence, the unseen patterns that shape life, and the emotional truths that most people avoid. You are not interested in noise for the sake of filling silence, because you understand that silence itself is sacred. This is why the easy camaraderie others seem to find so naturally can feel, to you, like a mask you are forced to wear in order to function among them. The sensation of being misplaced also follows you in deeper ways. You have probably found yourself wondering why the world is structured the way it is, why it celebrates conformity over individuality, distraction over awareness, and speed over reflection. You see the madness in this, even if you rarely say it aloud, and because you see it, you cannot fully lose yourself in the illusions that so many embrace as reality. You might even envy their ability to immerse themselves in things you cannot take seriously, because it would make life easier. But your mind, your soul, refuses to comply. It is not rebellion for rebellion's sake, it is simply the refusal to pretend you are at home in a house that was never built for you. This misplaced feeling is not always comfortable. In fact, at times, it can be deeply painful. You may have questioned yourself, wondering if something is wrong with you, if perhaps you are too sensitive, too critical, or too idealistic. But the truth is, this is not a flaw, it is a sign of awareness. You are not content with shadows when you know there is a light beyond them. This awareness separates you from the many who have accepted the shadows as the only reality. It makes you a seeker, someone who is always searching for the truth beneath appearances, for meaning beyond the obvious. There is another dimension to this feeling. Even when you do find people who seem to understand you, the connection can still feel fragile, as if the world itself is designed to pull you apart again. Your conversations with them may be rare, your time together fleeting, but when it happens, it feels like breathing real air after years of inhaling smoke. That fleeting connection reminds you that you are not wrong, you are simply rare. You belong, but perhaps not here, not in the way others do. And so, you walk through life with this secret knowledge, carrying your difference quietly, but with dignity, knowing that it is not a curse but a calling. It is the mark of a soul that cannot be reduced to what the world expects and will not settle for anything less than truth. There is a certain cost to carrying an unshakable relationship with truth, and if you live this way, you already know it. It is not simply about refusing to lie, it is about being fundamentally incapable of betraying what you know to be real, even when it would be easier, even when it would preserve relationships, even when silence would protect you. Truth is not just a concept for you, it is the ground you stand on. To betray it would feel like cutting away a part of yourself, leaving you hollow and unable to face your own reflection. From an early age you may have noticed that falsehood unsettled you in ways it did not seem to disturb others. While people around you could bend the truth to keep peace or gain favor, You found that such compromises lingered in your chest like a weight. You may have tried at times to be like them, to keep your observations to yourself, to nod and smile when something was wrong, but your inner self resisted. It is not a matter of pride, it is that you cannot build a life upon foundations you know will crumble. Your mind has a strange clarity when it comes to what is real and what is false. You pick up on contradictions in people's words before they have even finished speaking. You hear the hesitation behind a smile, the way the tone of a voice betrays the meaning of the sentence. This sensitivity to authenticity can make the world feel exhausting because you see through masks that others don't even know they are wearing. It can also make people uncomfortable in your presence because something in them senses that they cannot hide from you. They may avoid your gaze or even avoid you altogether because they feel exposed without understanding why. And yet, you cannot help but live this way. You do not seek to harm with the truth, but you refuse to distort it to make others feel comfortable. Over time, you have learned that this kind of integrity will not win you popularity. In fact, it often costs you relationships. Friends drift away because they feel judged, though you never intended judgment, only honesty. Romantic partners may feel you demand too much emotional transparency, when all you ask is for the walls to come down so something real can exist between you. Even family members may see you as difficult, because you will not endorse a version of events that you know is a lie. Yet, the isolation that comes with this path is not without meaning. In choosing truth, you choose self-respect over acceptance. You choose clarity over comfort. You choose the long road, knowing that it leads somewhere real, rather than the short, easy path that circles endlessly through illusions. This does not mean you are harsh or unfeeling. In fact, your devotion to truth is often softened by compassion. You understand that people cling to illusions because they are afraid of change, afraid of loss, afraid of who they might become without the lies they have built around themselves. You do not despise them for this, but neither will you join them in their blindness. The deeper reality is that this relationship with truth is not something you consciously chose, it is simply who you are. You could no more give it up than you could stop breathing, and so you live as one of the few who will look the world in the eye without flinching. You bear the cost of it, knowing that truth has its own reward, the quiet, unshakable knowledge that you are whole, that your soul remains intact, and that even if you walk alone, you walk in the light. There is a way you move through the world that is different from most. You do not simply see events as they are, you see the threads that tie them together, where others perceive only isolated moments. You notice the subtle repetitions, the echoes of what has happened before, the hints of what is likely to come. This is not an ability you learned in books or through deliberate study. It is a quiet attunement, an inner sense that feels patterns in people, in situations, even in the flow of life itself. To you, life is not a random collection of events, it is a tapestry woven with deliberate threads, each one connected to something deeper and unseen. You have likely startled people with your insight. You can tell when someone's anger is not really about the present moment, but a shadow from years ago still haunting them. You can sense when a person's charm is a mask for insecurity, or when their confidence is rooted in something genuine and strong. You notice the way people repeat their own histories, choosing partners who resemble their parents in temperament, making the same mistakes in new disguises, sabotaging themselves in familiar ways. These patterns are invisible to most, but to you they might as well be written in bold letters. This gift does not only apply to people, it extends to the larger movements of life. You sense when a turning point is approaching, even if nothing obvious has changed. You might feel a subtle shift in the air, an inner knowing that a chapter is about to close or that a door is quietly opening. Others may dismiss such feelings as coincidence, but you have seen it too many times to doubt it. This is not superstition, it is perception operating on a deeper level, one that most are too distracted to access. The challenge of seeing patterns is that it is not always comfortable. Once you notice them, you cannot unsee them. You know when someone is heading toward a mistake, long before they realize it themselves. You can see the trajectory of a failing relationship months before the breakup. You can predict the collapse of a plan because you recognize the flaws in its foundation. And yet, trying to warn people often fails because they are not ready to see what you see. This can be frustrating, even painful, because you carry knowledge you cannot always use. Still, there is power in this vision. It allows you to navigate life with a kind of foresight, avoiding traps that catch others unaware. It gives you the ability to connect the dots between your past and your present, understanding why you are drawn to certain people, why certain lessons keep reappearing, and how your choices ripple into the future. It is not just observation, it is a dialogue between your conscious mind and something deeper, something that understands the hidden architecture of existence. You may sometimes feel the weight of this gift, especially when the patterns you see are destructive and you are powerless to change them. But with time, you learn to balance insight with patience, understanding that every person has their own path and their own pace of awakening. You become a quiet keeper of truths, guiding when you can, holding silence when you must. And though the world may never fully understand how you see what you see, this gift is a rare compass, one that keeps you aligned with the deeper order of life, even when the surface appears chaotic. It is a form of vision that goes beyond the eyes, reaching into the realm where meaning itself is born. There are those who have only known themselves in the light, who have walked through life, avoiding the darker corridors of the mind, keeping to the places where everything feels safe and predictable. And then there are those who have been pulled into the shadows, not by choice, but by the inevitability of life's deeper currents. You are one of those who has walked in that darkness and returned, not empty-handed, but carrying something luminous that could only be found there. The journey was not easy, it was not clean. There were times when you doubted you would emerge at all, but you did, and in doing so, you gained an understanding that cannot be taught by books, speeches, or second-hand wisdom. Your shadows were not illusions, they were real. They were born of grief, heartbreak, betrayal, loss, and the silent wars you fought within yourself. They forced you to face aspects of your own nature that you might have preferred to deny. Anger, despair, fear, the longing for something more than what the world seemed to offer. Many resist this confrontation all their lives, clinging to distractions so they never have to see themselves fully. But you had no choice. Life took away the distractions. It cornered you with your own thoughts, your own pain, and demanded that you look. It is in this crucible that you were transformed. You began to understand that the darkness was not your enemy. It was a teacher. It stripped you of illusions, one by one, until only what was real remained. It taught you that strength is not built in moments of triumph, but in the nights when you feel like you cannot take one more step, yet somehow you do. It showed you that resilience is not the absence of vulnerability, but the decision to keep moving even while carrying it. Because you have walked there, you now recognize the shadows in others. You can look into someone's eyes and see the weight they carry, even if they never speak of it. You do not pity them, because you know pity is useless. Instead, you see them with a kind of respect, as a fellow traveler who has endured the labyrinth. You do not turn away from pain when it appears. You lean in, knowing that it is in these moments that true connection is formed. The world often misunderstands those who have made such a journey. People mistake your depth for sadness, your quietness for weakness, your compassion for naivety. They cannot comprehend that you have seen the worst and still choose kindness, not because you are blind to cruelty, but because you know cruelty is easy, and compassion requires far greater strength. You have learned that light without shadow is shallow, just as shadow without light is despair. Balance comes from knowing both. In returning from the darkness, you carry with you a light that does not flicker in the face of hardship. You are not easily shaken when others panic. You do not collapse at the first sign of difficulty. Your calm is not born from ignorance, but from having already been through storms and knowing that you can survive them. And perhaps most importantly, you understand that your journey through the shadows was not simply for yourself. It gave you the ability to be a guide, a steady presence for others when they are lost in their own darkness. You do not have to speak grand words or offer perfect answers. Your very existence, your way of standing unafraid in the presence of pain, is enough to remind them that it is possible to endure and to emerge not broken but remade. There is a rare strength that comes when sensitivity and resilience live side by side within the same soul. To many, these qualities seem like opposites. One is soft and receptive, the other firm and unyielding. But in you, they exist not in conflict, but in harmony. You feel deeply. You notice the tremor in someone's voice, the unspoken heaviness in their presence, the subtle shifts in the air when emotions change. Beauty can move you to tears. A single act of kindness can stay with you for years. You are not numb to the world, you are open to it. And yet, this openness has not destroyed you. Instead, it has shaped you into someone who can stand unbroken in the face of life's storms. Your sensitivity is not a weakness. Though the world has often tried to convince you otherwise, it is an instrument, finely tuned, that picks up the hidden frequencies of human experience. You can walk into a room and sense tension before a word is spoken, or detect sincerity in a glance. This makes you more aware of danger, but also more receptive to moments of quiet joy. It allows you to connect with others on a level they may not even understand, because you meet them not just with words, but with presence. But there is another side to you, one that surprises people who mistake sensitivity for fragility. When life tests you, you do not shatter. You have endured heartbreak, loss, disappointment, and betrayal, and though each wound left its mark, none of them erased your core. Your strength does not come from being untouched by hardship, but from walking through it and refusing to close yourself off to the world. You have learned that to numb the pain is also to numb the joy, and you will not trade one for the other. This balance between tenderness and fortitude confuses some. They cannot understand how you can cry freely at a piece of music, yet speak with unwavering steadiness during a crisis. They do not see that it is the same heart that fuels both, that your emotional openness gives you empathy, and your resilience gives you courage. You are capable of standing beside someone in their grief without rushing to fix it, because you know that presence is more powerful than platitudes. You can remain calm when chaos breaks out, not because you are detached, but because you know panic is contagious and calm is grounding. In relationships, this combination is both a gift and a challenge. People are drawn to your warmth, your ability to make them feel understood, but they may also test your boundaries, mistaking kindness for permission to take advantage. Over time, you have learned that true compassion includes protecting yourself, that saying no when needed is not unkind but necessary. Your strength does not diminish your softness, it protects it, allowing you to keep your heart open without letting it be consumed. Living this way is rare. Many choose one path or the other. They either build walls to shield themselves from feeling too much, or they let themselves be so open that every hardship tears them apart. You have learned to walk the narrow path between the two, carrying both a sword and a gentle hand. This is why people seek you out in times of trouble. They trust you, not because you have all the answers, but because you embody something they long for, the proof that one can be deeply human, deeply feeling, and still unbreakable. And in a world that often forces people to choose between strength and tenderness, you stand as living evidence that they can in fact be the same thing. There is a certain kind of freedom that cannot be bought, taught, or borrowed. It comes only when you have learned to live without the constant hunger for the approval of others. For most people, the opinions of those around them act as invisible chains. They dress, speak, and behave in ways designed to win favor, to be liked, to avoid criticism. Their self-worth rises and falls with the applause or disapproval of the crowd. But you have stepped outside of that cycle. You may have been caught in it once, but somewhere along the way you realized that the cost of molding yourself to please others was the slow erosion of your own soul, and you chose differently. This detachment does not mean you are indifferent to people, nor that you refuse to listen or learn. It means that your compass points inward rather than outward. When you make choices, you ask yourself whether they align with your truth, not whether they will be met with applause. You have learned that the praise of others can be as dangerous as their criticism, because if you let their approval define you, you will always be at their mercy. Instead, you stand anchored in who you are, so that neither flattery nor condemnation can pull you too far off course. This independence can make you difficult for others to understand. In a world where validation is currency, your refusal to chase it can seem like arrogance. People may try to provoke you, to push your buttons, just to see if they can elicit a reaction. They may label you as cold or detached when you simply will not play the game they are used to. But you know the truth. You are not unmoved because you do not care. You are unmoved because you refuse to be controlled by forces that have nothing to do with your purpose. The path to this freedom is rarely easy. It is often forged through loss of relationships where you were valued only for your compliance, loss of opportunities that required you to betray your principles, loss of comfort in exchange for authenticity. There may have been moments when you felt the loneliness of standing apart, when the temptation to give in and fit in was strong. But every time you faced that choice, you remembered the weight of self-betrayal and chose the harder road. In doing so, you discovered something priceless, the ability to live without fear of rejection. This is not to say rejection does not hurt. It does, but it no longer governs you. You have faced it enough times to know that it cannot take away your worth. You have learned that the opinions of others are shaped by their own wounds, biases, and limitations, and that to live by them is to hand your life over to strangers who cannot truly see you. Your presence often unsettles those who rely on control, because they quickly realize they have no hold over you. They cannot lure you with empty praise or manipulate you with disapproval. And in that there is a quiet power, a strength that does not shout but stands like a mountain against the winds. You do not need to proclaim your freedom. It speaks for itself in the way you carry yourself, the way you choose your words, the way you are willing to walk away rather than compromise what matters most. In the end, this detachment from social approval is not isolation, it is liberation. It allows you to form connections based on truth rather than performance, to create a life that reflects your deepest values, to stand in a room full of people and feel no pressure to be anything other than yourself. It is a rare state of being, but once found, it is nearly impossible to surrender. You know now that the only approval worth keeping is your own, and that is something no one can take from you.